Hey guys, well today what I want to do is just show you my method of taking a big rock and make it smaller. Basically what I want to do is I want to take a decent sized rock or a rock that you wouldn't normally carry and flake off flakes for a flint and steel fire. This isn't flint knapping. I'm not an expert at flint knapping and I'm not even skilled at it. I've done it a little bit, but this is just my method for flint and steel fire and just some of the things that I've learned on my own. So let me reset up the camera and we'll get started. Like I said, it's going to be real informal. I'm not out in the woods, not a lot of pretty scenery. It's going to be a garbage can in my hand. That's about it. Okay guys, so the first thing I have is a bopper. Now, if you were in a true outside situation and you needed to do this, you would obviously have to find a hammerstone or something. But for garage practice, or I mean, if you look at the guys that really do a lot of flint and steel knapping, or not flint and steel, I'm sorry, just flint knapping, they use a lot of these types of tools. They'll have nails, they'll have a lot of modern equipment. Some of the guys go old school with deer antlers, blah, 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 stuff like that. But anyway, this is what we're going to use. It's just a dowel with a piece of copper on the end of it. I had a good friend make this for me, or she just sent it to me. It feels quite weighted in the end, so I can't remember what she put in the end, but it's definitely, you know, a piece of steel or lead or something up there. And then here we have a piece of flint, chert, whatever you want to call it. It sure looks like it to me. I'm not an expert in geology, but look at the fracture there. Look at the facets. I know this is going to spark for flint and steel. So it's a little bit big for me to carry around, and it doesn't have super sharp edges on it. It's got a couple, but what I need to do now is examine this rock and determine where would be a good spot for me to strike it, and hope that I could section this off into pieces that would be usable, that I could put in a tin or whatever for flint and steel fire. So alright, let me get situated over my garbage can so I don't get flint shards all over the place, and we'll get to cracking. Alright, so looking at this piece of rock here, chert, flint, whatever you want to call it, I see different possibilities for me. When I look at it, I look at things that I could strike down and create a fissure, or fissure, however you say it, and slice off a chunk of this rock. Now just by looking at it, I can see this is an overhang towards the bottom. If I strike, depending on where I strike, if I strike it back here, I'm going to knock a small piece off. If I strike it about right there, I'm hoping it's still going to be a little bit small just by the shape of the rock. And you're just going to have to experiment with this. You're just going to have to get some rocks and just beat on them. And that's basically how I learned. So, and like I said, I'm not an expert. This is just my experiences. So, like I can tell by that little divot right there, that if I strike that, it's going to cut into the rock and flake off some pieces. Let me just get to cracking and see what we can do here. And like I said, the reason for the garbage can is just so I don't get flint flakes all over the place. And a washcloth, you know, a lot of guys use leather or whatever. This is just down and dirty garage type stuff here. So I'm just going to hold on to it and give it a good whack right there. Alright, so I got a couple pieces that fell off, actually quite a few. These are actually quite small. There's basically nothing I could do with them. I take that back. They're actually quite sharp cutting tools. You could do some stuff with them. But this one is on the smaller side, but it would still work for flint and steel. I'm going to set this one to the side. This one's just, you know, if you're just doing practice and stuff, you can get that to work. That's fine. But we got it down a little bit smaller. Breaking off into a lot smaller pieces than what I wanted. So I saw that fracture line. I didn't show you guys, but I could tell that there was a fracture line already there. So I just decided to go for broke. This has got a lot of good possibilities right there. It's not your awesome piece you normally see guys use, but it'll work. Now I'm down to a size that I need to basically sharpen one edge as best as I can. And actually this is usable, it's just a little thick. And a lot of times, instead of just wasting this or trying to practice on it further, I'll use it until it's dull and then continue to practice on it. Now it's pretty tough for me to shave off a piece off of that to make it thinner. Most of the times I just end up ruining it. So when it gets this small, because it's this thick, you know, if it was a little thinner it'd be easier. Okay, so that piece that I had was a piece that I had just actually gathered from southern Minnesota. It's one of the first pieces I found in Minnesota. This is a piece that I found in Missouri. It's bigger, it gives you more options. I can see a shelf develop right there. Just a shelf that if I hit up here, it should give me a little $50 size maybe piece here. Let's see what we can make of this. Look at that flake. That's a nice flint and steel flake right there. Or a cutting tool. Okay. You just got to figure this rock for the most part, if it's a decent rock, I mean they're all rocks, they're all different, but you have to figure that if it's, and here's the back side of that flake, if it's got a shelf, for the most part this stuff wants to break off in thin slices, okay? Like you got to kind of look at it and determine, like if I start hitting it here, I don't think anything good's going to happen out of that. Okay, so there's a little piece. That's nice flint and steel. Or like I said, that one's a little dull, but it's still good cutting material. Or I mean, I'm sorry, it's still good flint and steel. This is fragile though, it'll break, but we'll give that a try on our steel as well. So you get these bigger pieces and you can get some nice chunks to flake off. You just got to kind of look at it and think about how is this sucker going to break, and that just kind of comes with time and just beating rocks together. A little piece, a little thicker than what I wanted. It didn't break exactly where I wanted. There's another piece that broke. See if I can get a little flake right there to break off. Right there. So there's a nice little piece that broke off. So far I've got not very much waste in this rock. Still, now that I'm down a little bit further, I think I can get to that piece that wants to fracture off. See right there? I think that little chunk will fall off if I hit it right. And there it just broke off. Okay. Let me practice. I'm going to hit this ledge right here and see what happens. See if I can bust off some of this backside maybe. If I hit it right there, actually maybe we'll do that. If I hit it right here, I think I'm going to get a little thicker chunk, but it'll still have some. See right there, I think if I hit it there, I think this whole node is going to just jump right off of there. Actually, I'm going to hit it on this side where I can see that little fracture. So, not the greatest little piece, but still good for flint and steel. That was a smaller than expected piece to flake off of there. There's quartz in it though, so that makes it a little more brittle. There's a nice little piece that flaked off. Okay. Nice little piece there. Okay guys, this is the rock that I have left over, the piece of flint or chert. It's pretty thick here. I still think that I could smack some different chunks off of it if I use a little different technique. Instead of just using my hand, I need to maybe put it up against an anvil, you know, like a rock or something like that to keep it a little more steady. But just real basic, grabbing a bopper that you make yourself from the hardware store or have a good friend make for you, you can shear off some workable pieces of flint, workable pieces of chert. Like I said, I use the term flint kind of interchangeably. This is a different rock. Where did I get this? This is from the first part of the video. That one didn't flake as good. It was smaller. It was harder to work with. Once you get it smaller like this, you're not going to bust off awesome flakes, or at least with my knowledge base, I do not know how to split that rock in half. If I could split this rock in half, I would for sure. But like I said, with my knowledge base, I can't do it. But still, this rock yielded some decent, you know, pieces of material here to work with. If you're practicing, especially just starting out with flint and steel, you're going to go through a lot of flint because it dulls the edge quite readily, quite rapidly. And this flint was a bit fractured to begin with, but this was one of the better pieces I collected from Missouri. Anyway, you guys can see all this, you know, little quartz in the material right there. This is a nice little piece here. And as far as sharpening your flint, I'm not going to wreck that piece. Just show you. Let me get a piece maybe that might be a little bit dull, a piece that I've used, and I'll show you the same principle. It's basically, the way I describe it is you're just shearing off shelves of this flint. Here's a real small example. Let's say this was a bigger piece or whatever. You can tell there's a line right there that's going to break eventually. But one side overhangs the other a little bit right here. So if I hold it like this and I slam down right there on my bopper, a flake is going to pop off of there. Let's say I want to try to make this either a smaller edge or, you know, just do something to it. Basically, I'm trying to sharpen this edge right here. So some pieces flaked off. It's a small piece to begin with, so it's not going to be, look at that, didn't even feel that. That's how sharp that is. But it's a small piece. That's why you use the the washcloth. It's a small piece, so you're not going to get a big flake off of there. What you're doing is sharpening this. See, these are the types of little razor shards that are coming off of that. See there? That's how this, you got to kind of think of how this rock's going to break. It's not, for the most part, it doesn't break into little crumbly pieces. It breaks sheer like that. And of course, right here you could use a nail or something. Wow, look at that sucker bleed. Okay, you could chip it off. See that? And you're doing in miniature what you were doing larger before. Now you go to the other side. And it gives you a sharp edge again. So if you've got a nice fine edge to work with, use a smaller tool. If you have a big, large edge, and you're trying to just whack off some of these some of this, material, then you're going to need to get yourself a bopper. But I made all these pieces and had actually not very much waste rock out of that. Maybe just, about that much waste rock that I couldn't use. Alright guys, well I hope you liked this video. Obviously I'm not an expert in flint knapping. I don't make beautiful little awesome arrowheads, but I can make smaller rocks out of a bigger rock and make usable cutting tools or make usable pieces of flint for flint and steel fire. And like I said, if you just look at it and just figure you're slicing part of that rock off, and the way that you hit it will determine how it slices off. And then there is a little luck involved too, because some of these rocks are fractured inside that you don't know about. So anyway, just real basic how to sharpen your flint or how to make smaller rocks out of bigger rocks. So, alright guys, take care.